I'm back already. In my last video, someone left an interesting idea in the comments. As you can see here, Shocker807 themselves suggest I should make a map where everything has prop physics. Well, I can do you one better, Shocker. What if I made the buildings prop physics? Well, that's what you see me setting up right behind there. The idea is to use the function fizz boxes that I found out about last video to make houses that when you shoot will basically topple over. And real quick before we get into it, the site I'm using right now, Team Fortress Skyboxes, is really helpful when you're starting out your map. As you can see here, I pretty much get to choose between all of the skies available in Team Fortress with all the lighting controls that official maps have, so I can just really quickly grab them, put them in the map, don't need to worry about any lighting at all. And here's where it begins, the creation of the first wall. I'll start with a pretty ordinary wooden texture and just kind of build it up from there. And all I have to do is press Ctrl T, turns it into a funk detail, go back into the box, make it a funk fizz box, and there's pretty much nothing that I need to change here for our first test. I press F9 to start compiling the map for the first time, and totally don't forget to uncheck the box that says not to turn on TF2. And here it is, the moment we were all waiting for. As Ronald Reagan once said, Gorbachev, tear this wall down. And nothing happens. Because of course it doesn't. It never happens the first time. So obviously something is wrong with this wall. I guess Gorbachev didn't want to listen to us this time. I'm not sure if you could tell, but the wall was wiggling when I hit it. So obviously the physics is still working, it's just too heavy, maybe it's stuck in the ground. Even the rockets wouldn't do anything. And even the mighty escape plan. I mean, if the escape plan can't do anything, then nothing can. So we're back to square one. You can see here I'm making two different sets, because when I want to do an experiment, I want to have a control variable. All this means is when I'm testing more than one thing, I don't want all of those things to be on one wall, because if one of them goes wrong, then it'll look like all of them are going wrong, and I can't see what the problem is. This will only look like 30 seconds to you, but for me, this was a half hour of trying all these different things. You can't quite see, but I mess with the mass, the damage output, all of these different key values on the wall. Nothing you really need to worry about, all you need to know is none of them worked. So I changed gear. I tried to see what would happen if I made different shapes funk boxes. So I made an upside down triangle and a very crudely made wheel. Something about the cylinder tool only being made looking up. So the wall doesn't work as per usual, but the upside down triangle goes flying. But then the second it lays down, it stops moving. So I'm starting to think maybe it has something to do with surface. Because as we can see with the wheel, it moves ever so slightly, which is weird because the tire model that was in the last video worked absolutely smoothly. So maybe it has to do with how much of the block is touching the floor at any given time. So I made the walls thinner. The first wall is 8 hammer units thin now, which is the usual wall size in a TF2 map. The next one is 4, and the next one is 2. I did 4 in case the 8 doesn't work, and the 4 doesn't work, but the 2 does. Alright, let's test it. Or not, because I actually forgot to record it, even though this is probably one of the more important parts of this whole thing. So I kind of remade the whole thing, and this is kind of what would have happened.
Whoa, oh my god, it fell down! No way, oh, they all fell down, oh my god! Oh, Jesus! Oh, it's working! Oh, yes! Oh, yes! Oh, it's working! Oh, yes!
So, yeah, I decided to go with a brighter skybox to celebrate. Sunnier skies bring good luck, you know. And of course, what's a physics experiment without some dominoes? This part was actually pretty easy. I just had to make sure that the dominoes were thin enough, that they weren't too far apart, and that the angles were, you know, not too angular, and it just made a good curve. It's just like making dominoes, except you don't actually have to be patient, because you can do it in like 3 seconds. And you get to see it in all its 5 frames per second glory. Nothing wrong with a little stop motion.
Cannon!
Now ain't that satisfying? Alright, domino's over. We gotta clean up the toys. It's time for science. Of course, now we're back to the tests. This time I wanted to see if I could put things on the wall and if it would still work the same. So, trims, I cut the wall in half and retextured the bottom, and I actually made a third door this time with both a trim and a retextured base. If this works, it'll be a big leap. I go into the console to put in some commands, and the first wall just falls over by itself. So, yeah, confetti. I guess that's another victory. By this point, I was starting to get pretty excited as to what the houses could look like. I need to test 2 more things before we can move on to the house. First off is corners. Can I have 2 funk boxes touching each other? Or will it not fall down? For one of these, the corners don't actually really touch. I just want to see if I can at least have them kind of next to each other. But when I test it, both fall down pretty fine, so I guess I didn't have to worry. We can see here that you still need a decent amount of force to actually knock the walls over. You can't just hit him with a crossbow or something and expect the whole thing to topple. Alright, you're almost there. The final thing before the house starts. We need to make sure that angles work. As per usual, I built 2 different types of tests. One where the angles are connected to the wall, and one where they're just kind of stacked on top of them to see if they kind of stay in place. And for the most part, they do stay in place. Sure, both of the walls fall over, but that's just because they're so thin and have nothing to stand on. This might be helpful later if I want more detailed destructions, but for normal building stability, I don't think it'll work that well. Surprisingly, the triangles do move after they've kind of hit the floor, even though there's a decent bit of surface there. I think that's because the points are so thin that it kind of messes with it a bit and makes it possible to shoot them around. This is just me real quick seeing if I can section off the buildings for more detailed destruction like I mentioned earlier. Nothing that really comes up again though. It falls over alright, but now all the pieces are too big to move around, so I'll put this as a kind of failure. This one little piece wouldn't fall until I punched it. Poor little guy.
Take that!
Alright, house making time. I really only started with a simple wooden shed, just to get the basics out. While this was going on, I wanted to ask if you guys had any good ideas for a theme for the map, maybe. I have some ideas of my own because I kind of know what I can and can't do with the Fizzbox, but I'd still love to hear your ideas. This is about where my perfectionism starts to kick in. I probably could have finished this shed like a couple seconds ago. Well, for you guys, a couple seconds ago. But I just had to make sure every single texture was the right orientation. The first building topples by itself, so I realized that the roof is actually pretty fundamental in keeping it stable. Oh, I love this part. Of course, the crossbow does nothing. I don't even know why I tried, but now ain't that something. Of course, the next step was to see if I could connect any props, or more specifically prop physics to it, see if they all work together well. So I make a big chimney. A big chimney. Look at that. Get that all set up, and then place the tire. And while that's happening, I want to just say a big old thank you to everybody who watched my last video about the Funk Prop Physics tire. I was expecting that video to get maybe 80 views, and now we're about 200 and still counting. So I'm pretty thankful about that, honestly. That being said, that's when stuff starts falling apart. So take it away, Moon Hooch. So what we have here is now 3 walls that won't fall down no matter what I do, a tire that just went flying and isn't helpful at all, and a chimney just floating in the air. Terrific. Well, whatever. I guess that just means we can't have prop physics. But can we have prop dynamics? See, if I take this window, give it some space, make it a prop dynamic, I can parent it to the wall. Parent-child programs just mean whatever the parent does, the child will follow to the pixel. So to us, it'll look like it's all one object following, but it's really 2 objects that just follow each other perfectly. And look at that, it works perfectly. We take another small victory. Alright, around here I had the idea to make the capture point itself also a Funk object. Now, how I did that is I took the model of the capture point and I tried to create this cylinder type of Funbox. But then I realized this kind of square looks much better anyway. I just think this looks funny. Some Looney Tunes type shit. And here's an axe, actually being used as an axe. I already think some pretty interesting things could happen as I kind of sticky bomb the point around. Naturally, there's still the problem of people getting stuck in the walls, but I kind of move on to designing a base layout that I could build this map on. So unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this first part. I plan to make the map in a kind of title style, unless there's a comment out there that has just a genius idea, then maybe I take that instead. Alright, final thing. Part 2 of this video will be the fun episode. We'll actually have the map completely built, and we'll playtest it a bit, and by we, I mean you guys. I'm planning to put a Discord link in this description at some point, so it might not be there now. To round people up for once the map is done, which could take a week, could take 2, who knows. But once we get it, we'll have some fun just destroying the map every round. And with that, take it away, Moon Hooch.